is why there's a big resurgence in the West against us. There is a big resurgence in terms of academic conferences like the Dismantling Global Hindutva Conference. I think many of you must have heard about it. Dismantling Global Hindutva Conference was held on 9/11, the day when America suffered the largest attack, a terror attack on its soil. And on that very day, there was a conference with 45 plus American universities participating, plus other 15, 20 other universities across the globe participating. And the conference was called Dismantling Global Hindutva, and it had a RSS being yanked out with a hammer, RSS sort of a puppet, being yanked out with a hammer out of its cog. So that sort of violent imagery was being perpetrated there. So you can imagine what kind of discussions were going on. I did a sentiment analysis of the conference and transcripts of the conference to understand what was being spoken at this conference, why are they worried about Hindutva, how do they define Hindutva, and what is their problem with Hindutva or Hindus. And very interesting facts came through during that conference. The first important fact that came through to me in that analysis was that whenever we try to define ourselves as Hindus, when we take ownership of our own definitions of who we are, then that is a big problem, and that is called Hindutva. Of course, political power in the hands of the Hindus is also called Hindutva. That's a lay perspective. Everyone knows that. But beyond that, when the RSS, Vanavasi Kalyan Ashram, goes to the tribal regions, calls them Vanavasis instead of Adivasis, that is a big problem for these group of people who are the classic Break India forces that Rajiv Malhotra describes in his book, Breaking India. Now, when the Indic identity resurfaces among these Vanavasis, that is a problem. So there was a big statement being made that these Adivasis have started to worship Durga now instead of Mahishasur, right? They have started to worship Ram now instead of Ravana, So they are now proud of celebrating Holi and Diwali. So that to them is a big problem because that strengthens the Hindu identity. The other important point to note from that conference is that whenever the caste calculus breaks, when the Hindus do not think of themselves in terms of Dalit or Adivasi or, other sectarian manners, then that is a breaking of caste calculations for election purposes or other resource allocation purposes, and that to them is Hindutva. So these are two big definitions that came through. Whenever there's a decolonization process going on in India, reclamation of their institutions or rebuilding of certain Indic ethos, that to them is Hindutva. So obviously, Breaking India forces will never want that identity to come through, and Hindutva, attacks on Hindutva directly talk about Brahminical patriarchy, Brahminism, and pejorative words for Brahmin. So to them, the Brahmin identity is close to the Hindu identity and the Hindutva identity. Attack on a Brahmin, as I saw in my sentiment analysis, is also an attack on Hindus and Hindutva.